Hello, vintage lovers. Do you love the idea of wearing vintage clothing but have no idea which decade you'd look best in? By the end of this video, you'll have some simple tips so that you'll know which decade is your best decade and your best look so that you can go out and find your own unique style. For the best advice about vintage style, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so that you'll always know when new videos come out. I'm Ren, and I've been teaching the history of fashion for 15 years, but I've been collecting and wearing vintage fashion and accessories for 30 years. I have a passion for it, and I really enjoy sharing that passion with others. So let's get right into the steps that can help you find your authentic vintage style. But first of all, what is vintage and how does it differ from retro? Technically, vintage is really clothing and accessories that are at least 50 years old, but now those guidelines have been pretty much relaxed. However, retro is probably considered more like 15 to 20 years old. So it's not as strict as it used to be, but I like to think of vintage as much older than the 80s or the 90s. So I'm a little older, so of course something from the 50s is really vintage to me, whereas something from the 80s is not so much. So it depends on your age and it depends just on your personal preference. Step 1. Look at images of clothing from different decades just to see what resonates with you. If you find yourself more attracted to the 1920s silhouette, for example, or more attracted to the 1950s hourglass silhouette, then you want to pay attention to that because wearing vintage clothing needs to reflect who you are and what you feel best in. Step number 2, what is your body type? Certain decades favor certain body types. Keep in mind that in the past, shapewear was very important in terms of providing the basic guidelines of a silhouette of a particular period. So corsets, girdles, all kinds of different shapewear was used to be able to achieve that silhouette no matter what your body type is. But if you don't want to go through that now, in this day and age, it's best to find something that really feels good on your own body, depending on your body type. The 4 main body types are pretty much rectangle, triangle, hourglass, and a rounder shape. So some women are a combination of these shapes. It's not cut and dried, but most of the time there's a dominant silhouette, and most women know what that is for themselves. So if you are a rectangular silhouette, meaning you don't have a really defined waist or hips, the 20 silhouette might work very well for you because that was a very boyish shape in the sense that curves were not shown. They were discouraged during that decade. Whereas that if you have a more of an hourglass voluptuous shape, then the 50s silhouette would look great on you. Think Joan Holloway from Mad Men, if that's a show that you're familiar with. She definitely wore the shapewear to make that silhouette look appropriate on her body type, and you can do the same. If you're already wearing vintage, let me know in the comments below which decades you prefer. I tend to like the 40s because the style is so tailored and that works for me, but I also love the silhouettes of the 1950s as well. Step 3, think about what you like to surround yourself with. Some women not only like to wear vintage clothing, but also like to surround themselves with vintage style, furniture, artwork, etc. So really take a look at that too, and that'll give you a better idea of which decade might be appropriate for you. Step 4, look in magazines and other sources of current fashion and decide which styles that you like best. Everything's been done before. It's just a modern version of another decade. So think of it that way. And we can mix elements now, so it's a lot more fun to mix true vintage pieces or vintage inspired pieces with more modern clothing and accessories. So this is something to have fun with and not to be too serious about. But modern fashion will help you decide for yourself what you tend to be drawn to the most, and that will help you when you select your vintage clothing as well. Step 5, visit a vintage store or scroll through the pages of Etsy and eBay to see what styles resonate with you there. I recommend starting out with true vintage shopping rather than trying thrifting in the beginning until you really are familiar with what true vintage clothing looks like and which decades you're most interested in. It'll be a lot easier if you look at the true vintage in the beginning until you get more comfortable with it. However, eventually you'll be able to find vintage inspired pieces that may not be true vintage, but that look and give the vibe of vintage. And you can find those in thrift stores for very little money. Once you get really into this, you'll see what I mean. And if you'd like more vintage style tips and more information on Spirits of Fashion, please click on the link below and subscribe to my monthly newsletter. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.